Ahoy Captain, and welcome to 2 Minutes Off, a series in which we explain rules and regulations in maritime sustainability and more in just 2 minutes. Why 2 minutes? Because your time is precious and you are busy enough as it is. So in the next 2 minutes we will explain the most important aspects of FuelEU Maritime, perhaps one of the most stringent upcoming regulations that we know of in the maritime industry in the coming years. We will explain what it is, why it is important, and how it will impact your vessel potentially. Speaking about costs, of course. We will not dive into pooling, and that we will do in the FuelEU Masterclass video. If after these 2 minutes you still need help with calculating greenhouse gas intensity, penalties, or anything at all, and you cannot make it work with the FuelEU Quick Scan that we built, feel free to contact the help desk at any time. Now, without further ado, let's dive into FuelEU. FuelEU is part of the Fit for 55 package, aiming at ultimately 80% greenhouse gas intensity reduction by 2050, starting at 2% in 2025, and becoming increasingly more stringent every 5 years. It applies to all ships, all flags of 5,000 GTs and above, carrying cargo and persons for commercial purposes. Under FuelEU, ship owners are required to calculate greenhouse gas intensity each year and, if necessary, pay the penalties. They also need to have onshore power supply of shore power in case you have a container ship or a passenger ship. But the most important part is the yearly calculation of greenhouse gas intensity and penalties. Let me show you. Greenhouse gas intensity is calculated by summing the well-to-tank with the tank-to-wake emissions, multiplying it by the reward factor for wind-assisted propulsion, if applicable. If your actual intensity is above the target intensity, you need to pay a penalty. The penalty itself is calculated by taking the difference between the target and the actual greenhouse gas intensity, multiplying it by the energy used on board, and a penalty factor. And this means the more energy or fuel you use per year, the higher your penalty will be. The actual formula is quite more complicated than this appears to be. Here's the formula from the regulations, and because it's pretty complicated, we made a quick scan that allows you to quickly determine greenhouse gas intensity and the penalties associated. Ship owners will have to pay roughly 50 euros per metric ton of HFO and a little bit less for MDO or MGO. And here are the results for a container ship that consumes over 12,000 tons of HFO each year. So what happens is that if you do nothing at all, you will pay almost €1 million each year from 2025 onwards, up to 90 million euros in the business as usual case or doing nothing at all. That's quite absurd, of course. So apart from simply not sailing in the EU, what can you do to avoid these kinds of penalties? Both shore power and wind-assisted propulsion are pretty good options that can save you up to 10 years without having to pay a penalty. Ultimately, however, you will need to have a fuel change or a fuel mix. In our quick scan, we also made a simple overview of different fossil fuels, biofuels and e-fuels that show until when these can be used without having to pay a penalty. And although it is very hard to look 25 years ahead, this gives you an indication of fuel options for your vessel. For most ship owners, we believe that biofuels will be almost a certainty in the coming years ahead regarding FuelEU, of course. And that concludes our 2.5 minutes. If you have any remaining questions or need help with calculating greenhouse gas intensity or penalties, feel free to use the quick scan on our website. Please note that members of Sustainable Ships can download all the quick scans and calculators for free, all of them, so check out the perks associated with this membership. If at any time you have any remaining questions at all, feel free to contact the help desk in order to save your time with this troublesome, pretty complex regulation that is FuelEU. That being said, as always, have a great day.